Europe, 1954. 9:30 a.m., Sunday, January 10th, Rome Airport. Here, a dozen planes come and go every hour. On the tarmac stands Flight 781, en route from Singapore to London. The plane is a British-built de Havilland Comet. It's the marvel of its day and the perfect symbol of the new technological age. The Comet is the world's first passenger jet, and it's halving journey times around the world. The pride of Britain sends a message of superiority to every aircraft manufacturer in the world.
A dream comes true. At Hatfield Airport, the Comet, the world's first all-jet airliner. Begun 3 years ago, the airliner that makes every other passenger plane out of date will go into operation within 18 months.
The revolutionary design is based on de Havilland's hard-won military expertise. The plane is powered by 4 Ghost jet engines and carries 42 passengers and crew at up to 800 kilometers per hour, almost twice as fast as its nearest competitor. To help it achieve this staggering speed efficiently, it flies at a height of up to 12,000 meters, where the air is thinner. Until now, such performance was the preserve of military jet fighters. 20 months after the launch, there are 17 of these aircraft in service. 9 are owned by the British Overseas Airways Corporation, or BOAC, and among them is Flight 781. 9:40 a.m. BOAC engineer Jerry Bull inspects the Comet's undercarriage. He checks for fuel leaks, tire damage, and marks on the airframe. He pays attention to the aircraft's high-tech, ultra-lightweight aluminium skin. It's extremely thin and vulnerable to damage.
You're looking for this incidental damage. There was none as far as I can recall at that stage. So my own thought at the time was walking, oh, we've got a clean airplane today.
At 10 a.m., Bull completes his final checks. The flight crew join him. The captain is Alan Gibson. At 31, he's one of BOAC's youngest pilots.
Captain Gibson was a man of very good ability, not a person who would panic about anything. He was, confident.
In Rome Airport Terminal, members of the new jet set enjoy breakfast. Many are children returning to England for a new school term. They're excited about flying on the world's first passenger jet. Also on the flight is renowned BBC reporter Chester Wilmot. He's returning home after covering a tour of Australia by the recently crowned British Queen. "10:05 a.m. and the last pieces of luggage are stored in the hold of Flight 781. The plane will be flying today with 29 passengers and 6 crew members on board. At 10:18 a.m., all pre-flight checks are complete. Captain Gibson signs to confirm that everything is in order.
Captain Gibson seemed very relaxed, also looking forward to getting home.
Flight 781 is just one of 5 BOAC services from Rome to London today. An older generation of slower propeller-driven airliners make up the other flights. At 10:19 a.m., a BOAC Argonaut, also bound for London, thunders down the runway. Captain Johnson is at the controls. At 10:30 a.m., 11 minutes after the Argonaut's departure, the Comet taxis to the runway. Jerry Bull salutes goodbye.
BA 781 is Champina Control.
Control, this is Flight BA 781. We are clear for takeoff.
Roger.
Air traffic control grant permission for takeoff. 1 minute later, the high-tech plane takes to the air. It's a sunny day, and conditions for flying are perfect. The journey to London will be exactly 2 hours and 37 minutes. The gleaming jet will arrive at London Airport a staggering 2 hours before the propeller-driven Argonaut. Such speed is so far beyond anything produced by American rivals Boeing and Douglas that Comet's manufacturer de Havilland expect to dominate this booming market. Throughout Britain, expectation is high, from Prime Minister Winston Churchill down.
It was important from the British point of view to have our aircraft in the air, and an aircraft which was far better than anything else. So it was a booster.
But since the Comet entered service 20 months ago, there have been 2 accidents with the loss of 54 lives. In March 1953, one crashed on takeoff in Pakistan. 2 months later, severe weather was blamed for a second disaster in India. As both accidents occurred in difficult conditions, reliability of the Comet is not in question. At 10:38 a.m., Flight 781 climbs to an altitude of 11,000 meters, twice as high as any other passenger aircraft. To achieve this, while allowing passengers to breathe comfortably, the engineer operates a pressurization system from the cockpit. As the Comet rises, the air pressure inside the cabin is maintained at the equivalent altitude of 2,500 meters, a level easily tolerated by the human body. But for some passengers, adapting to this new sensation is difficult. Soon, though, they acclimatize and settle back into their seats for the flight. What they cannot know is that they will never make it to London. As Flight 781 climbs, Captain Gibson receives a message from Captain Johnson in the slower Argonaut that took off a few minutes earlier.
Jig receiving.
Each pilot uses the plane's call sign. Pow Jig for the Argonaut, Yoke Peter for the Comet.
In due course, can you pass on height of cloud layer, please? Well, we're currently at 20,000 feet. And I'll let you know when we pass through. Roger, out.
At 10:42 a.m., Captain Gibson contacts air traffic control.
You're a beam at the Cheeseback beacon flying out 23,000 feet.
The plane will fly northwest over the Italian coastline, high above the Mediterranean Sea.
Would you like some tea, sir?
At 10:51 a.m., Captain Gibson again radios the Argonaut.
George Howard Jig from George Howard Peter. George Howard Peter from George Howard Jig. George Howard Jig, did you get my message? The message ends mid-sentence. Yoke Peter, come in, please.
When Captain Johnson gets no response, he contacts Rome Airport.
We've lost contact with BA 781. They just seem to have disappeared. Can you raise them?
At 10:56 a.m., the airport controller tries to contact the Comet. Without success. They fear something is terribly wrong. 200 kilometers northwest, on the island of Elba, a group of Italian fishermen are repairing their nets. Among them is 33-year-old Luigi Papi. As they work, something extraordinary happens.
I felt a break in the air, and then there was a bang, and I heard a sound like thunder, but it was not like any thunder I'd ever heard before.
They watch in amazement as flaming wreckage falls from the sky. At 11:15 a.m., air traffic control receives word that a plane has crashed into the sea off the island of Elba. It confirms their worst fears. Jerry Bull hears the news.
The senior engineer says, "Got some bad news, Jerry. And I look at him and he said, the Comet's down. It's an emptiness.
I don't know what else to say.
You can't really describe it. It's just this numbness you get. And the next reaction, of course, is this something I didn't do?
1,200 kilometers away, a small flotilla of fishing boats heads off the coast of Elba towards the crash site.
At first, we saw nothing. Then we saw a flock of seagulls which were pecking at something. So we headed straight for the seagulls. And that was where the plane had crashed.
It's a harrowing scene. Bodies and debris float in the water.
It was a big shock. Every time we went near a corpse, we would shout, "Come over here, come over here," because they seemed still alive. Their eyes were open. But when we got near, you could see they were dead.
In total, 35 passengers and crew die on board Comet Flight 781. 15 bodies are recovered. There are no survivors. The dead are carried to a small chapel in Port Azzurro. Local people say prayers. Children bring flowers. The horrific crash is headline news around the world. The question on everybody's lips is how could the most advanced airliner in aviation history just fall out of the sky? Was it a tragic accident? Or something more sinister? Paul Withy is an aviation metallurgist. For 6 years, he studied the Comet investigation and is an expert on this turning point in aviation safety. Withy knows that with no established protocol for air crash investigation, it was an epic task.
The difficulties they faced as an investigation team was to develop a whole new series of techniques for looking into a major air crash. And they had to really invent tests, invent methods of doing things as they went along.
But Withy needs to be sure that this landmark case actually did get to the truth. Now, for the first time in half a century, he will re-examine the vital evidence. If he discovers their findings are wrong, it will rewrite the history of air crash investigation. From the beginning, the inquiry team are faced with an enormous challenge.
In 1954, the investigation team had no black boxes. They had no flight data recorders. They had no way of understanding what was going on in the plane at the time of the accident.
Their best clue, the aircraft itself, lies at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. Without the remains of the plane, the team know they must unravel the mystery with the flimsiest of evidence. With little to go on, the press speculate that sabotage might be the cause of the crash. These are the early years of the Cold War, and there are fears that subversive communists may be responsible.
Sabotage, a bomb. I mean, that came up fairly rapidly, you know, it has to be. How did it happen?
A bomb could have been hidden on board while the plane was taking on extra baggage. It's only a theory, but if true, it would at least eliminate doubts about the safety of the Comet itself. With the pride and prosperity of a nation riding on the Comet's success, a close eye is kept on the investigation from the very top. Winston Churchill himself. If saboteurs are responsible, the investigators know they must come up with hard evidence. They know that Flight 781 would have been flying at around 11,000 meters when something caused it to break up and fall from the sky. The Italian fishermen provide a few clues.
saw a huge ball of fire, rotating and plunging into the sea. It left a huge cloud of smoke.
Captain Johnson, pilot of the Argonaut, deepens the mystery.
The radio went dead in mid-sentence. Everything just cut out instantly.
But it's the victims themselves that provide the biggest mystery. Within hours of the crash, Italian pathologist Dr. Antoni Fornari examines the bodies. Despite Fornari's considerable experience, he finds a pattern of injuries he has never seen before. The victims suffered broken limbs and damaged ribs, injuries sustained after death. But what confuses Fornari is that many of the bodies have fractured skulls, wounds he discovers that were sustained before death. He finds another puzzling clue. The lungs of almost all the victims are extensively damaged. Many have ruptured like an exploding balloon. To top it all, Fornari finds no evidence of a bomb blast. It's a strange, perplexing picture, and he's baffled. With so little evidence, the investigation hits a dead end. Concerned, Prime Minister Churchill summons his advisors and takes an unprecedented step. Churchill commands the Royal Navy to retrieve the wreckage of Flight 781 from the seabed. His orders are simple. Endeavor to locate and salve Comet. The task, however, is anything but simple. There has never been a salvage operation like it before. The wreckage lies at a depth of 120 meters, and no one knows exactly where.
Today, if an aircraft crashed in similar circumstances, the black box recorders would have transponders and would lead the investigators and the recovery teams to the spot where the aircraft was. The Navy didn't have that information.
HMS Wrangler, an anti-submarine frigate, searches an area of 260 square kilometers. 3 salvage vessels are on hand to help. They're equipped with the most up-to-date technology, including an underwater camera and a deep-sea observation chamber. Then, on February 12th, 33 days after the crash, Navy experts identify the first piece of the Comet wreckage on the underwater camera. Divers descend to the seafloor. Over the next few weeks, small bits of debris are sent back to England for examination. Then comes a major find. A large section of the rear fuselage is located and brought to the surface. Meanwhile in London, the Comet fleet sits idle. BOAC hemorrhages cash at the rate of £50,000 per week. With so much invested in the aircraft, pressure builds to get the planes back into the air. On March 23rd, 10 weeks after the disaster, the British government give the airline the go-ahead to resume service.
At London Airport, a Comet airliner about to leave for Johannesburg was taking out extra crew members.
Press and television attend the relaunch.
Everybody was in high spirits at the resumption of Comet flight.
BOAC Chairman Sir Miles Thomas gives the Comet a public vote of confidence.
We obviously wouldn't be flying the Comet with passengers in it on service were we not wholly satisfied that the conditions are acceptable for carrying passengers anywhere in the world.
Wreckage from Flight 781 arrives in England piece by piece. Investigators identify and mark every fragment. In a hangar, carpenters build a wooden frame of the Comet aircraft. As the wreckage accumulates, they wire each piece onto this skeleton. Now, with the entire Comet fleet back in service, it's more important than ever to find the cause of the crash. The lives of hundreds of passengers depend on it. At 6:32 p.m. on April 8th, 16 days after the resumption of flying, a Comet takes off from Rome bound for Egypt. 14 passengers and 7 crew members are on board. 33 minutes into the flight, the pilot reports that he's on course flying at 11,000 meters. It's his final message. further 21 people are dead. The news sends shockwaves around the world. Barely a fortnight after reassuring the public the Comet is safe to fly, BOAC's chairman publicly admits that he was wrong.
Obviously, we cannot continue to carry the public in Comets until this disaster is fully explained.
Similarities between the two accidents are uncanny. Both planes were refueled and checked at Rome by the same engineers, including Jerry Bull.
You just can't accept that an aeroplane like this, again, it's gone down the same way, and you've lost these people again.
Both aircraft were flying at an altitude of around 10,000 meters. Both crashed into the sea shortly afterwards. It seems there must be a flaw in the aircraft itself. Again, the British Navy looks for evidence. They recover 5 bodies, along with a few personal effects. Churchill acts decisively. He appoints the Royal Aircraft Establishment, Britain's leading aeronautical research centre, to investigate. Heading the inquiry will be Sir Arnold Hall. Hall has an impressive reputation. He's a Cambridge scholar and one of the outstanding scientists of his generation.
Sir Arnold Hall is a brilliant scientist, and he was one of those people who would let the facts speak for themselves and would make judgments based on fact, not on opinion.
Churchill instructs Hall. The cost of solving the Comet mystery must be reckoned neither in money nor in manpower. But even for a man as qualified as Hall, it's going to be a tall order. plane, pressurizing it, as if it were flying. It seems as if the tail and rear fuselage then came away from the main cabin. The rear wing structure followed, and then the outer wingtips. The cockpit broke away as the plane plummeted to Earth, and finally fuel from the wings set the debris ablaze. But the exact cause of this tragedy is still a mystery. Then, on June 24th, Sir Arnold Hall gets a call that changes everything. The team running the water tank test has had a major breakthrough. Less than a month after testing began, after the equivalent of just 3,000 flights, the Comet fuselage ruptures. Engineers immediately drain the tank, and Sir Arnold Hall inspects the damage. There is a massive tear in the aircraft's skin, 2 meters long and 1 meter deep. The tear follows the line of the plane's windows and doors. It's a shocking but vital turning point. They have uncovered a major weakness in the structure of the Comet. The entire fleet seems to be fatally flawed.
I think everybody was thunderstruck. De Havilland certainly were thunderstruck because they didn't expect a Comet airframe to fail so soon in its life.
But what triggered such a dramatic failure? There's one prime suspect, a phenomenon known as metal fatigue. It's something Paul Withy knows well.
This is a piece of aluminium sheet similar to that which was used on the Comet skin, but much thinner. One cycle of load isn't going to fail it at all. But if I repeatedly load it, like this...
Fatigue is caused when a metal is repeatedly flexed one way and then the other.
There you can just see it's about 3 or 4 millimeters across the sheet.
After a while, minute cracks start to form.
Cracks growing further and further across the sample.
The cracks steadily increase in size, and eventually the part fails. But there are two problems with this explanation. Metal fatigue leaves a telltale microscopic pattern on the surface of the metal. Although in the 1950s, the technology for detecting this pattern is in its infancy, none of the parts reclaimed from the sea seem to show any sign of it. Secondly, before the Comet went into service, the manufacturers did extensive fatigue tests to find out how the fuselage would behave under repeated pressurizations. It passed with flying colors. Sir Arnold knows he must come up with hard evidence to prove the theory. He must find a part of Flight 781 that shows signs of the fatigue.
The piece of evidence that Sir Arnold needed above all other was that source of fatigue crack growth that he knew was there in the airframe somewhere.
A single piece of wreckage is all that's needed to validate the entire investigation. But this crucial evidence still lies at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. By tracing the tear back, they find it starts at the forward escape hatch. This is not surprising. Stress to the aircraft should be evenly spread throughout the fuselage. But when a door or window is cut into the plane, it weakens the structure, and the stress concentrates around the weakened areas. To investigate further, they rig another aircraft with strain gauges designed to measure stress in the airframe. The results are shocking. During flight, the stress to the skin around the plane's windows and doors reaches 70% of its total strength, 4 times greater than the rest of the aircraft's skin. This is dangerously high, and twice what the designers intended. Then the team discover an even more worrying detail. The supports around the windows are riveted, not glued as designed. The problem is, the rivets are punched into the metal, not drilled. This technique creates tiny manufacturing defects, which with repeated flying can turn into fatigue cracks.
The presence of manufacturing cracks in a highly stressed area meant that you were highly likely to suffer from fatigue failure.
Sir Arnold and his team know they're getting close, but they have not yet conclusively solved the mystery. They've found no trace of metal fatigue on any of the wreckage from Flight 781.
It was vital that he found that piece of evidence from the seabed that would tie the crash to the accident investigation in an unequivocal manner.
Then on August 12th, 7 months after Flight 781 crashed, an Italian trawler snags a large piece of wreckage. It turns out to be a section of the roof from 781's fuselage. The piece includes 2 small windows built for sending and receiving radio signals. Sir Arnold Hall and his team inspect the wreckage at Farnborough and immediately find what they're looking for. A rivet hole in the corner of one of the windows shows a tiny crack. When they put the piece together with the rest of the wreckage, they find that all the cracks run back to this point. They have their missing clue. The final piece of wreckage was examined with an ordinary microscope, and the team relied on experience to make their conclusion. Today, London's Science Museum safeguards the crucial piece of wreckage. Paul Withy goes to see the historic item for himself. No one has ever used modern methods to re-examine the evidence. Using 21st century know-how, Withy wants to look again at the wreckage and check that Sir Arnold got it right. In order to preserve the damaged section, it has been mounted onto a plate. Running from a rivet hole is the crack which, it's believed, started the catastrophe. Then, at Imperial College London, Withy uses an electron microscope to examine the sample. Magnifying the crack about 200 times, Withy shows what Sir Arnold would have seen.
This is the fatigue crack we saw on the Comet skin, and Sir Arnold Hall and his team could see that using their techniques of the day.
But zooming in further to 800 times, Withy can see detail that Sir Arnold never could. He finds a tiny manufacturing defect, probably formed when the rivet was punched into the metal.
And it was that manufacturing defect that caused this fatigue crack to grow. And it's this image here that shows that Sir Arnold Hall and his team were right. It vindicates them in seeing that it was a fatigue crack, which then grew to failure.
52 years after the most groundbreaking and innovative investigation in aviation history, Paul Withy has conclusive proof that Sir Arnold Hall's results are absolutely right. Now, by rewinding the events leading up to that fateful crash, and by following the evidence uncovered during the investigation, we can reveal how Flight 781 was downed. 10:31 a.m., January 10th, 1954. 26 minutes to disaster. Flight 781 takes off from Rome Airport. The plane is designed with an exceptionally thin aluminium skin. Rivets punched into the aircraft during construction create microscopic manufacturing defects. On each flight, the pressurization system puts enormous strain on the fuselage, causing stress to the skin, especially around the windows and doors. Repeated pressurizations turn the manufacturing defects into fatigue cracks that get bigger with every flight. 19 minutes to disaster. Flight 781 climbs to 11,000 meters. As it ascends, the pressure increases and the aircraft's skin becomes more stressed.
Would you like some tea,
At
sir?
10:51 a.m., the Comet's pilot, Captain Gibson, sends a radio message.
George Houchick from George York, Peter.
5 seconds to disaster. A fatigue crack reaches 2 centimeters in length, and the aircraft skin rips apart. At 10:57 a.m., the shattered pieces of Flight 781 fall from the sky. 35 people are dead. 4 years after the crash, the Comet did fly again, but it never achieved the commercial success it once promised. In the interim, American company Boeing developed their own passenger jet and became the dominant force in the world of aviation. the de Havilland Aircraft Company went into decline and were eventually taken over. Passenger air travel had changed forever.